Hello and welcome to my school channel. My name is Angela, and in this video we're going to continue the government topic by topic video lesson. So we're moving on to a new unit, foreign policy and Nigeria's relationship with the international community. So the topic we're discussing today is Nigeria's foreign policy, and I've divided this video lesson into 4 segments. So in the first segment, we are going to discuss the introduction to foreign policy and how Nigeria relates with other countries of the world. So please stay with us, don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back to my school channel. Like I said earlier, we are moving on to a new topic, Nigeria's foreign policy. So in this first part of the video lesson, we're going to discuss the introduction to Nigeria's foreign policy. So let's dive right into it. All right, so here is a list of the things that we're going to discuss in the 4 video lessons for this particular topic. We're going to begin with what foreign policy is all about and relate it to Nigeria. We're going to discuss the interdependence of nation, the reasons for Nigeria's interaction with other countries of the world, what are the determinants and the instruments for conducting foreign policy. Then we're going to move on to Nigeria's foreign policy. We're going to discuss how Nigeria's foreign policy is made, the objectives of Nigeria's foreign policy. We're also going to discuss the principle of non-alignment and Africa as the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. Then we are going to move on to the eras of Nigeria's foreign policy from the Balewa era down to the Tinubu era. So let's dive right into it. All right, so remember we're going to begin with what foreign policy is all about. So foreign policy refers to the decisions and actions taken by a state in its interaction with other states or international entities in order to protect and promote its national interest. So in this particular definition, the decisions and actions are very important. They are things that a particular state actually has to do when it interacts with other states or other nations of the world. So it does this to protect and promote their national interest. So national interest is a very important keyword in this particular definition. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so it is the strategy a government adopts to manage its relationship with the rest of the world. So several scholars have defined this concept of foreign policy. So a very important definition is the one given by Joseph Franco, who defined it as consisting of decisions and actions which involve to some appreciable extent relations between one state and another. Then J.C. Piano and R. Olton also defines it as a strategy of planned course of action. So you can see action is a very important keyword in this definition. Developed by decision makers of a state vis-a-vis other states or international entities. So the relationship between one state and another is also important in the definition. Action, the relationship between one state and another, which is aimed at achieving specific goals defined in terms of the national interest. Now let's move on to the next slide. So national interest is a very important keyword here. You can't define foreign policy objectives without discussing the national interest, the interest of that particular nation. So the concept of national interest is central to foreign policy. It is the foundation upon which states design and pursue their external objectives. So what is national interest? It refers to the totality of the political, economic, social, cultural, and security interests of individuals and groups within a particular state. So since states do not operate in a vacuum, their foreign policies are guided by these interests in order to ensure survival, stability, and development. So the foreign policy actions, the objectives that are created as a particular nation interacts with other nations of the world is defined by the interest of the people within that country. So if the interest of that particular society is one that is political, they want to ensure that there are certain advantages that the society gains, then the foreign policy has to be geared towards those interests. If it is economic, if there is the need to develop the economic situation within the nation, the foreign policy objectives should be geared towards those interests, those economic interests. So national interest is significant, not the interest of the other country. Although the interests of the other countries may align with that particular country's national interest, the specific objective of foreign policy is to ensure that the national interest of that particular society is fulfilled. Let's move on to the next slide. Right now, we're going to discuss the relationship between national interest and foreign policy further. So we're going to begin with how national interest provides direction. So a state's foreign policy is shaped by what it considers important for its survival and progress. So it is what is considered important for the survival and progress of the people within that country that is defined as national interest, and it is what provides direction to foreign policy. So while national interest is what provides direction to foreign policy is the instrument by which the national interests are actually actualized. So it is the actual practice or strategy by which the national interest is promoted or defended in the international system. So there is a dynamic nature between the national interest and foreign policy objectives. So since national interests change with time, foreign policy is also dynamic and responsive to both internal pressures and external circumstances. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, we're also going to discuss the interdependence of nations. So foreign policy is largely influenced by the interdependence of nations. No nation, regardless of its size or resources, can exist in total isolation. Even the greatest nations of the world have to interact with other countries of the world in order to ensure that their political, economic, and cultural stability is ensured. So the modern world has become closely linked due to several reasons. So some of those reasons include breakthroughs in communication and transportation, so which make international contact easier and faster. So with the advent of the internet and so many other devices that help us to communicate with one another, it has become easier for different nations of the world to interact with one another. Then the formation of international and regional organizations help to ensure that there is this interdependence, reliance on other nations, mutual benefits gained from other nations of the world. So this formation of international and regional organization brings states together for cooperation. For example, the United Nations, the African Union, ECOWAS, and OPEC. These are international and regional organizations where different countries of the world come together to see how they can mutually benefit from one another. Then globalization is another factor that has led to that interdependence. Globalization has intensified trade, cultural exchange, and political cooperation across borders. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, now we're going to discuss how Nigeria interacts with many nations of the world. So one of the ways by which they interact with other nations is through diplomatic relations. So by establishing high commissions, embassies, and consulates abroad, they're able to have that relationship with other nations of the world. So when you establish high commissions, you establish embassies and consulates. These various institutions, they help you to relate with other nations of the world. They are actually buildings that are set up in other countries that help foreign diplomats to relate with other countries of the world. Then Nigeria also hosts other foreign missions. So many countries also have embassies here in Nigeria. They have embassies and consulates here in Nigeria. And so when it comes to Nigeria, they sort out mutually beneficial relationship with the Nigerian government and various institutions within the country. So Nigeria is also a member of several international organizations. So Nigeria belongs to global, regional, and sub-regional organizations such as the United Nations Organization, the African Union, the Economic Community of West African States, and so on. So we belong to so many different international organizations, and we help to contribute to the conversation there so that our national interests are continuously protected whenever there is an issue that is up for debate in the international community. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, now we're also going to discuss the need for interaction with other nations. Why do we need to interact with other nations of the world? So there are several reasons. So some of the political reasons why we interact with other nations of the world include, first of all, to secure international recognition and legitimacy as an independent state. So this was one of the foreign policy objectives that was developed in 1960 when Nigeria gained independence. So Tafawa Balewa also ensured that the Nigerian society gained that recognition, that legitimacy as one of the independent states of the world. And that reason is to promote peace and security through cooperation with other countries. So Nigeria also relates with other nations of the world in order to ensure that peace and security continues to reign within the country. So whenever there is any external threats, maybe from terrorist groups and so on, they have to relate with other neighboring countries to ensure that these terrorist groups are curtailed within the society. They also help to play an active role in regional and global politics. So, for example, Nigeria being a member of ECOWAS, they help to ensure that there is this economic relationship with other West African states. They ensure that there is trade liberalization so that other nations of the world can come and trade within the states. And Nigeria can also trade within those countries, and this can help to develop the economy of the country. So it also helps to resolve disputes through diplomacy and international law. So Nigeria belonging to several different international organizations means that they can have a voice, they can have a say whenever there is any issue that relates to the entire world as a whole. So it also helped to project Nigeria's image as a leader in Africa and as a responsible member of the international community. So this is another very important objective that was introduced by Tafawa Balewa during his independence speech. He talked about how Nigeria was going to become a leader in Africa, and we can see all of that play through as Nigeria continues to develop right from 1960 to this present day. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, now we're going to discuss the economic reasons. Why does Nigeria interact with other nations of the world economically? So one of them is to trade with other countries and access markets for Nigerian goods, e.g. crude oil, agricultural produce, and so on. So crude oil, agricultural produce, we have a lot of that in excess sometimes, and we need to be able to sell those to other countries who do not have that, so that we can be able to gain more revenue at the end of the day. And also when we don't have certain resources within our country, for example, technological resources, we have to import all of that from other countries. So one of the reasons why we relate to other countries of the world is to ensure that we have everything necessary within our country and we're able to export the excess that we have so that we can gain more revenue. Then it also helps to attract foreign investment and technological assistance. So sometimes we do not have enough resources to develop our infrastructure within the country, and so we have to relate to other countries of the world who have those resources, who have the economic resources necessary to develop this infrastructure. We do not have some of this technological equipment that can help to ensure that we develop more revenue, and so we have to relate to other countries of the world. So another reason why we relate with other countries is to secure foreign aids, loans, and grants for national development. Then we also need that to benefit from membership in economic organizations like OPEC and ECOWAS. So OPEC is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. We're a major exporter of crude oil, and we have to relate with other exporting countries so that we can be able to standardize oil price. Without standardizing that oil price, we may not be able to gain as much as we can from crude oil sales. We also have to relate with other West African states economically so that we can be able to trade with one another since we're neighboring countries. It also helps to ensure energy security, international shipping, and access to essential raw materials. There are some raw materials we do not have in the country, so we have to import it from other countries. So this is one of the reasons why we relate to other nations of the world. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, now we're going to discuss the socio-cultural reasons. So one of the reasons we interact with other nations of the world is to promote cultural exchange and understanding between Nigerians and other peoples. There are certain aspects of our cultures that may be valuable to other societies of the world, and so we have to be able to have that exchange of cultural ideas with other countries. It also helps to encourage educational cooperation, scholarships, and exchange programs. So this is a very common reason why there is the need to interact with other nations of the world. So sometimes we may need to be able to exchange students so that students can learn from other cultures. We may also need to exchange professionals, especially when we do not have enough professionals in certain sectors of the economy. So we need to be able to relate with other nations of the world so that they can import professionals and we can export professionals as well, so that we can help other countries that do not have such professionals in those sectors. So this is another reason we interact with other nations of the world. We also do that to protect Nigerians living abroad and ensure their welfare. So if we do not have a good relationship with other nations, the way Nigerians who are living abroad are treated may not be the way we want them to be treated. So it's important to have a cordial relationship with other nations. So another reason for interaction with other nations is to preserve shared values and strengthen ties with African and Commonwealth countries. It also helps to enhance Nigeria's image through sports, arts, and cultural diplomacy. So sometimes different organizations are created in order to ensure that there's this continuous cultural exchange with other nations of the world, especially when it comes to sports. When we have the World Cup that is usually moved from one country to another to help to maintain that relationship with other countries of the world. When we have that exchange of art and other artifacts and so many other different things, it helps to maintain that bond, that relationship we have with other nations of the world. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so now we're going to discuss the merits of Nigeria's interaction with other nations. What are the good things that come out of our relationship with other countries? We're going to begin with the political advantages. One of them is international recognition and legitimacy. So Nigeria is acknowledged as an independent sovereign state because of that relationship that Nigeria has cultivated with other independent nations of the world. Then there is also the promotion of peace and security. So through participation in the United Nations peacekeeping and ECOWAS monitoring groups, that's ECOMOG, in Liberia and Sierra Leone, Nigeria contributes to regional stability. So you can see that Nigeria continues to ensure that there is peace and security all over the world. This is one of the major objectives of the United Nations, and Nigeria continues to ensure that it contributes to peace and security all around the world. It has also contributed to Nigeria's political influence. So Nigeria has played leadership roles in Africa by promoting decolonization. We're going to discuss a lot of that in subsequent video lessons. Then Nigeria has played a role in conflict resolution. So diplomatic relations help Nigeria resolve disputes with neighboring states. So if Nigeria doesn't have that cordial relationship with neighboring states, they will not be able to work together to solve some of these issues that are going on within the country, especially as it relates to terrorist issues. Let's move on to the next slide. Right now we're going to discuss economic advantages. So one of the economic advantages of Nigeria's interaction with other nations is expanded trade opportunities. So Nigeria exports crude oil, gas, and other agricultural products and imports manufactured goods and technology. So without that cordial relationship with other nations of the world, we will not be able to export our surplus and import those things that we do not have in excess. Then it has also helped with foreign investments. International cooperation attracts investors into key sectors: oil, banking, telecommunications. These are our major sectors within the country. And without that cordial relationship with other nations of the world, people will not come into Nigeria to invest in our various sectors. Then it also helps by providing access to financial aids and loans. So Nigeria benefits from the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and other bilateral assistance. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, other economic advantages include technology transfer. So partnership with developed countries helps to encourage industrial growth and innovation. So we do not have a lot of these technological resources here in the country. And so we have to partner with other countries that are technologically advanced so that they can also help to advance our own society. It also helps with employment opportunities. Many Nigerians work abroad and send remittances home. So these Nigerians who are working abroad, they are also sending revenue home to continue to help to develop our nation. So this is another advantage of Nigeria's interaction with other nations of the world. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, now we're going to discuss socio-cultural advantages. One of the socio-cultural advantages is educational exchange. So scholarships and exchange programs help Nigerian students study abroad. So when Nigerians want to gain more knowledge by going abroad and experiencing new cultures, there are several scholarship and exchange programs that are made available by different countries of the world, Britain for example, that helps Nigeria go abroad to study. Then another advantage is cultural promotion. Nigeria's arts, music, films, that's Nollywood, and sports gain international recognition as a result of that cordial relationship we have with other nations of the world. And then it also helps with exposure to ideas. So contact with other nations promotes reforms in governance, education, health, and social life. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, now we're going to discuss the demerits of Nigeria's interaction with other nations. So while beneficial, foreign interaction can also pose several challenges. So some of the political disadvantages of Nigeria's interrelationship with other nations is loss of autonomy. So international organizations sometimes pressure Nigeria into decisions not fully in line with their interests. Sometimes we may be forced to make certain decisions that are not in line with our political, our economic, and our cultural interests. And so we lose our sovereignty as a result of that. Then there is also interference in internal affairs. So external powers may influence Nigeria's domestic policies. So we can see that a lot with what is going on, what is unfolding in our Nigerian society today. We are going to discuss all of this in subsequent video lessons. Then it can also lead to strained relations. Diplomatic disagreement, e.g. over human rights, trade policies, can damage Nigeria's image. So sometimes there are some things that our leaders do that are not in favor of other nations of the world. Other nations of the world may frown at some of the actions that have been implemented by the leaders here in our Nigerian society. And so this can lead to a strained relationship with other important nations, nations that can help to advance us politically, economically, culturally, and so on. Then there's also costly commitments. So Nigeria spends heavily on peacekeeping missions and foreign aid at the expense of local development. So we see a lot of that in our African society, where Nigeria will send a lot of foreign aid, send people who will help to ensure that peace is maintained in some warring parts of Africa. And this means that Nigeria has to spend a lot of money doing that. So costly commitment is another demerit of Nigeria's interrelation with other nations. Let's move on to the next slide. Now we're going to discuss the economic disadvantages of Nigeria's interaction with other nations. So one of that is overdependence on foreign nations. So reliance on oil exports and foreign imports can weaken local industries. So the industries within our nations will not be able to function properly when people are not patronizing them. So the people might prefer to patronize imported goods rather than goods that are created in our local industry. So this can be an economic disadvantage. Then it can also lead to unfavorable trade balance. So Nigeria often imports more than it exports, and this can lead to trade deficits. So when you're importing a lot more than you're exporting out of the country, that means that you're not getting enough revenue within the country, and this can lead to trade deficits. And that disadvantage is foreign debt burden. So loans from international bodies sometimes lead to debt crisis. So when we borrow from the IMF, we borrow from the World Bank, it can lead to a lot of debts for the country, and it can be very difficult to pay those debts back. Then it can also lead to exploitation by powerful states. Multinational companies may exploit Nigeria's natural resources without fair compensation. We discovered that a lot of our revenue that we get from our country is from raw materials. We do not have industries to refine those raw materials into finished products, and so we depend on a lot of these multinational companies. And when they come, they might choose to exploit Nigeria's raw materials and not give adequate compensation for these materials. Let's move on to the next slide. Right now, we're going to discuss the socio-cultural disadvantages of Nigeria's relation with other nations. One of them is the erosion of cultural values. So Western influences sometimes undermine traditional Nigerian culture. So when a lot of cultural ideas are being imported into the country, sometimes it can lead Nigerians to stop inventing new things, new ideas. And it can lead to that erosion of the values, the cultural values we already have in our country. Then it can also lead to brain drain. Skilled Nigerians like doctors, engineers, and academics, they migrate abroad and leave shortages at home. So a lot of our skilled professionals, they leave the country, and so we do not have a lot of the skilled professionals anymore. Then it can also lead to security concerns. Openness to international movements can facilitate crime, terrorism, and trafficking. So when you allow your borders to be open to several different people as a result of several different agreements that you made with other nations, it can facilitate crime, it can lead to terrorism, it can lead to the trafficking of people within the nation. So this is one of the many disadvantages of Nigeria's interaction with other nations. It can also lead to negative image abroad. So incidents of fraud or poor governance at home sometimes tarnish Nigeria's reputation. So the fact that the entire world has become globalized means that we have that relationship with other nations of the world. We can communicate with other people in other nations. And so incidents of fraud becomes rampant, and when it becomes too much, it can tarnish our image abroad. So this can be another demerit of Nigeria's interaction with other nations. So we've come to the end of this segment of the video lesson. I believe it was educative and insightful. If you would like to continue on this journey with us, please go down to the link in the description below. This takes you to my school website where you can subscribe for the government topic by topic video lesson. Then you can continue on this journey with us. So we're also going to discuss the instruments of foreign policy, various factors that determine the creation of foreign policy within a particular nation, and so many other things. So I hope to see you there. I believe you're enjoying this content. If yes, please don't forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.